threat from uptown. You know my sound is major. I know you like the lyrics, kid, so just do me a favor. Tell the tech to turn my dad up. This is a pack cut. Hey, yo, don't back up, because I wanna dive in and swim in the mentals where your thoughts roam. I wanna make you know my home, therefore you'll never be alone. But when you hear my song, sing along with the rhythm, cause I got faith in fat beats that I give them. Yes, it's the ears and I'm checking out the blonde one. Maybe I can have one, maybe I can con one. Chill, I'm one with God, brothers. It's hard to stay straight until you're scared straight, and then you can't wait to get out.
Oh, welcome to another wonderful and beautiful session with Tom and Ramon and the 100th Monkey Radio. Man, Ramon, I'll tell you what. Yeah, there it goes. I'll tell you what. I've been talking about this and really thinking about this quite a bit here in the last couple of weeks since the 21st. About the way the energy changed for me personally from the 20th to the 21st, and what it's been doing since then. I think I've talked about how the 20th itself, there was the energy that I was sensing was just chaotic as all hell. I mean, it was just it felt like there was no stability within it at all. It just felt. It felt like chaos. Like everything was going all different directions, and there was so much fear and just almost bordering on terror that was out there. And the 21st, when I woke up, the change between the 20th and the 21st and what I was sensing was so dramatic. It was such a calm. And since then, that calm has started to, the energy behind that's really started to increase for me. And I'm starting to feel and sense a direction now. I don't know if this makes sense to a lot of you out there listening, but I'm sensing a direction for mankind now instead of that chaos that was there before. And I think it has a lot to do with having that 2021, the 21st date out of the way, and people realizing that it was just, the clock striking midnight type thing, and nothing really big and dramatic happened in the world. So I think we're now all focusing on, okay, where do we go from here? What the future holds, and people are getting down and dirty and actually starting to really project into the work. So, anyways, that's kind of the way I'm sensing things.
Yeah, I felt personally, I think I've said this before on a show, but I felt that becoming a little more sensitive to energies. But at the same time, I was telling my wife earlier today, because we spoke about this before, and I was telling my wife how I'm wondering, is it, and I have to question this, because are we really sensing this, or is it because of our anticipation? Kind of like the placebo effect kind of thing. You know what I mean, Tom?
Yeah, and I think, that I can attribute to the time leading up to the 21st, where people were, anticipating something to happen. That's where that sense of chaos that I was feeling, because everybody had their own ideas of what was going to happen on the 21st. So I kind of attribute that to the chaos that I was feeling. But since then, I don't know if there's so much of that anticipation type energy that I'm sensing. I think it's more of a focused time to do the work type energy that I'm sensing.
Yeah. Well, we can ask our guests about that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But before we do that, I just want to cover some of the news. Let's see. So let's start off with travelers experiencing the time anomalies in Argentina. So this is a news that I found where some people have been experiencing missing time or getting to their destination faster than they should be. We've definitely heard that happen to plenty of people. Let's see. We have another one here where a spaceman rock painting found in the northwest Kimberley region in West Australia 1891. The link is for that. And let's see, we have a giant cube recorded by NASA bigger than Earth near the Sun on December 21st and 23rd. NASA source, alien cube, first seen in 2011. And I think that's it, but I'll mention this one again, and I know you're very skeptical, but gold discovered in massive amounts on Mars, and this was discovered by, I don't know who the gentleman was, but Google Mars. So that's how that, he thinks that NASA is basically changing the colors and hiding that there's real gold. So, Tom, grab your shovel.
You know, I don't doubt that. I don't doubt, and I know that NASA does a lot of doctoring on the photos that they sent out. But,
no, not my NASA.
But as far as that being, just gold fields on Mars, yeah, I'm very skeptical of that one. But
I'm sure there's something there. Nobody's there digging now already, but you never know. But that's it for the news. We have a bunch of other news there that you can check out. And if you find any news, make sure you post it to our Facebook. That's what place you can find us. You can also find us on Tom's YouTube channel, and we have links for that, and Twitter.
Okay, we're also, guys, if you haven't been paying attention to what Ramon and I have been doing, we have started another show on the Truth Frequency Radio Network on Tuesdays, which I don't know, what must be a Tuesday thing for us, Ramon, because that's where we started at, right?
That's right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
So Tuesday nights at 5 o'clock Pacific, we are doing a live show on the Truth Frequency Radio Network. Who do we have coming up next week for that, Ramon?
If I'm not mistaken, we got our good old friend, John Meyer.
Yep, we do.
And he's going to be talking about some really interesting things. I'll just give you a quick overview. Basically, he feels that we've gotten the new energy body or something like that. I'm trying to remember from his email, but he's had quite interesting life, and
that should be a good show. Should be a real good show.
You guys enjoy it. But I really want to get into our guests, and before we go into it, I listened to his interview and I was intrigued because he's kind of like me and you, Tom, but definitely more hands-on because he's a little bit into everything, it seems.
So tonight we have Jef Harvey with us, and Jef has spent 6 years in the United States Navy and was inducted into a watcher group that infiltrated many of the New World Order controlled military organization. He was assigned to the EC division, an electronics unit on board the aircraft carrier USS John F. Kennedy, and worked in the intelligence center. Jef is board certified in nutrition and specializes in detoxification protocols. He's currently, his research is focused on activating dormant areas of the brain, mind matrix, astral manipulation, and consciousness projection in both animate and inanimate partners. He utilizes various leading-edge technologies, including, but not limited to, radionic torsion, radionics torsion field generators, Shiva and Paranormal Shakti neural stimulation systems, and analog wave generators. As a military protocol-trained remote viewer and radionics technologist, he assists the brain in directing energy patterns for various remote field manipulation strategies, including biological effects. Welcome to the 100th Monkey Radio, Jef.
Nice to be with you, fellows. I really enjoy your work.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, and vice versa. Since Ramon and I found you here not too long ago, I have been totally amazed with the work that you've been doing in the brain, and this is something that is near and dear to my own personal heart and path that I've been on. Understanding how we can actually interface with the reality that we find ourselves in. So, Jef, let's get us a little bit of background on you. If you want to give us a lowdown on what got you here and into this field.
Well, I grew up in a little town in northeastern Pennsylvania, population 590 something, I think. You know, unlike most kids, you know, I was interested in being outside of the house versus in, although I was grounded most of my childhood life.
Oh, you too?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, one of the really great things my parents did when they grounded me when I was young was they would put me in my room, and the only thing I had for entertainment was, let's see, 2 windows and a huge dictionary and a complete encyclopedia. Well, when you're grounded for long periods of time, like 6 weeks at a crack, because you're not behaving well, which I must admit I wasn't, you don't have much to do. So I read all of that material, cover to cover, page for page, word for word. So by the time I hit 9th grade, I had a college level vocabulary. I had learned a lot about the world. But what was interesting is when I was really young, down around 5, I used to get up real early because my dad would get up and go to work. And I wanted to be like my dad, of course, when I was young. And so I'd get up and I said, Dad, would you get me an alarm clock? And he said, no, son, you don't need an alarm clock. And I go, why? And he says, you have one. And I go, no, I don't. And of course, he said, all you have to do is picture in your mind the time you want to get up at, and you will. And I thought that was real, pure crap. But I did it, and dead on square, within 2 minutes, I was up. And I have been doing that ever since. Have never had a need for an alarm clock. Then a little later, he taught me some mind over matter exercises, which one example is you lay down on the floor and you stiffen all the muscles from your toes to your head. And then somebody will pick you up by your neck and by your ankles and set you on 2 chair ends. And you can stay there for long periods of time in this semi-trance state. And it forces the brain to do some pretty cool things in regulating your body. And by doing that early, it started stimulating all kinds of things. And I was able to invite somebody into a dream state with me and play a softball game. And then the next day when I woke up, I'd go talk to them and we'd talk about the softball game we had.
Nice.
So you get all kinds of things starting to open up when you're young like that. And that carried on into my high school years, and it accelerated dramatically. I began doing radionics operations in my head, and I didn't know that's what they were, of course. It was just I was interested in having something or doing something or having something happen. And you focus on something long enough, and it'll happen. And we'll get into that later. But in my high school year, I made sure that I did not attend my high school graduation picture, or not my graduation picture, but the yearbook picture, because I knew I was going into Intel as an operative. And I won't discuss how I knew, but basically I joined the U.S. Navy, and it was in boot camp that basically what happened was I was, I guess, pointed out a little bit because the drill instructor had me drop down and do the 20, and I got up and I said, well, that was easy. And he says, well, I can do that all day. And I said, good. Why don't you get down here with me and prove that you can? And, you know, they didn't have much to do. They were either lock me up in the brig for being insubordinate or take the challenge and do it. And I whipped his butt. So now they had a choice. What am I going to do? So they made me a squad leader, and I led by example all the time. If somebody was being told to clean out the gutters and all the mess that was in them, I would do it first just to prove that I'll do every single job that everybody else does. And all my guys were extraordinarily loyal because they knew no matter what, I would do it first, or if there was a problem, I was the guy that was going to take the hit, not them. So what happened was in my graduation, we had this huge platoon, this squad, and we were going by the grandstands with all the other platoons, or squads, whatever you want to call them. And, you know, you've got massive amounts of admirals and captains and their wives and the press and senators and congressmen all watching graduation. And as you go by with your squad, your job is you're marching along in lockstep in your nice uniform, and you turn to the left and you salute. It's called a salute 2. Well, we decided we were going to be a little bit rebellious. And so I taught them to do an adjust 2. So we turned to the left and saluted, and we adjust ourselves right in the middle of it, which, of course, that created an unbelievable gasp that went through the crowd. And then afterwards,
you mean
there was
fixing your clothes.
No, the package.
Oh.
Oh, wow. So you heard the big gasp go through the crowd, and I mean, you could hear it all for hundreds and hundreds of yards. It was that big. And then everybody broke out into laughter, and of course, they threatened not to let us graduate, of course. But there wasn't much choice. We basically, I'd love to find that video too. I'm sure they have it, the buggers. But at any rate, the bottom line is then a group noticed that the squad leader was the guy that set all this up. And they realized I had zero respect for authority. So I became inducted into a group of men. There's 6 or 7 of us. I can't remember exactly how many. But we were informed of what was going on with the globalists taking over the military and the governments, and that they were a group who were there to intervene and do what they can to resist and to help people understand what's going on. And so I obviously said yes, and it was a lifetime commitment. It was not just while you're in the military. The oath was lifetime, and I said, absolutely, I will. And I'm still on the job. So it was interesting because when I got into the Navy, I was assigned to the Kennedy, an aircraft carrier, as a audio video technician. I ran the video briefing system that briefed the pilots, the captain, and all these cameras and mics that were there were in all the ready rooms, the squadron ready rooms. They were in the most top secret places on the ship, the admiral's bedroom, the captain's bedroom. They were in Combat Information Center, cryptography, and metrology, and mission planning, which is where I worked, was in mission planning. And I was assigned to EC Division, which is an electronics group up there. And my rank, well, not my rank, but my, you would call it an MOS in the Army. But basically my job was, I was an interior communications technician, which is a phone technician, and we worked on sensors and phones down in the bilges and places like that. But because I had gone to closed circuit television school, I got assigned to the intelligence community. So it was kind of interesting that I was inducted into an intelligence watching community, and then later on went into the intelligence community itself. So it worked out quite well. Everything seemed to fall into place well. And that's what happened. I spent 6 years in there. I got out as an E6 and decided that I'd had about enough of in there doing it. My basic job was infiltration, obviously. And so when I got out, I infiltrated a few other companies. One of them was Electronic Data Systems, Ross Perot's old company, which he sold to General Motors, which we all know is one of the biggest New World Order groups there is.
Right.
And another one was Verizon Wireless. And it was interesting because when I investigated those guys, I found out they were like the pornography kings out there because they host all the porn sites, or a very large amount of them. Oh, so they've got, yeah, they're real scumbag. So it was interesting because in there I learned, you know, they have this motto, Verizon Wireless, a great place for women to work.
Huh.
And boy, when I heard that, I cringed. It wasn't long after I found out what was going on that I left, and I just made sure everybody knew about it. But I uncovered several other things. There was a company called NOS Communications down in Bethesda, Maryland. And when I joined those guys, after I left Electronic Data Systems, they were reselling long distance. And they would tell people, hey, we're going to drop your rate, we're going to save you all kinds of money. When in fact what they were doing is they were billing your calls in something called call units. And I still have the documents out of their legal files. And it was interesting because what they do is they convert all your minutes and seconds to call units. And so the way they were able to jack your price up without giving you too much to detect, they simply added a call unit or two to every call. Well, that's millions of dollars over the course of time. And what they would do is they would get other resellers that were smaller, family-owned operations that were reselling long distance, and bring them into the fold and tell them, hey, we'll take great care of your clients, we'll save them money, and you're going to look like a hero, and we're going to pay you really fat commissions because we're a bigger group. Well, what they were doing was they would bring them in, get all their clients signed up, and they would cut loose the group that brought them in and pay them nothing. So they were defrauding the public, they were wrecking families and businesses, and these people did this with absolute impunity. And when I uncovered all that, I resigned, and lo and behold, within 30 days, the CEO was fired, and they were thrown out of the state of Maryland. So there's a lot of bad guys out there, and we all know now that most all of Fortune 1000 companies are in the bad guy camp.
Right.
And if they're not, they soon will be, because these organizations and the globalists, they come in, they'll infiltrate the organization, and through whatever means they need to, they will take the company over.
Yeah. I just want to interrupt you for a second. Someone keeps scratching their beard or face or the microphone or something.
That's
I don't know
interesting.
if it's you, Tom, or...
Yeah, no, not me.
You're not scratching your beard, Tom?
Nope.
And that's
Hang
not
on.
you, Jeff?
Let me, can you hear anything now?
No.
All right. I think something's going on with my desk, perhaps. It might be a little wobbly.
It sounds like, it almost sounds like scratching the beard or the microphone head scratching or something like that.
Interesting. All right, let's see what happens. I will keep my hands away from the laptop while we do this, and we'll see if that stops it. If not, we have third-party interference.
Yeah.
That's not you.
Yeah.
Maybe you can teach them something. So, let's continue. So you were investigating these different companies and basically just calling them out. Would you say that you were working with some people called the white hats?
Oh, Ramon, you picked that right out of my brain.
Actually, out of your ears. No,
I'm not sure what you mean by white hats. You got to help me with that term.
Well, there's a group out there that are calling themselves the white hats, which are, the counter New World Order group, so to say, that are working in the financial industries and with against, so to say, the New World Order corporations. All
right.
No.
I have never had any contact with the people that brought me into the organization since, that I know of. And as an unhandled operative, because obviously, without any respect for authority, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. So they gave me my assignment, and they said, interpret it whatever way you wish, and go get it done. So I did. I don't have a handler or anyone I've ever reported to.
But have you noticed anybody keeping tabs on you, maybe?
No, but I have seen some interesting things happen throughout the course of my life that almost appears to me as though there's been some kind of a guiding hand helping me get into the situations where I can get things accomplished.
So like a right little nudge right when you need it or something like that?
Well, it's more like an opportunity will present itself, and I instinctually always know that that's what I'm supposed to do next.
Right.
Yeah, it's very nebulous. I'm not sure even how to give you an example. Like if you look at, let's see, EDS. EDS was an interesting one. I was working down in the Harrisburg area, and I wasn't happy doing what I was doing. And I was looking for a position, and I saw the position at EDS opening up. And somebody had said, you really ought to go check these guys out. It was just somebody I had met. And so I went and I checked them out, threw in a resume and an application, and went in there. I accelerated through their ranks, and I started being a team leader there. And I never uncovered anything really big there, but it was really clear that what they were doing was aiding and abetting AT&T in scamming the public. What they would do with AT&T was interesting, is they would have people sell the long distance to them, again telling them they're going to save big money, and then their bills would go up. So AT&T is one of the leading bad guys out there. And as you know, they work very well with hand in glove with Homeland Security and monitoring people.
Right.
Every single local telephone company center has monitoring equipment in it. Every single one of your high schools around the country have sections of phones and links and lines in there that are designed so that if the crap ever hits the fan, they will actually run centers out of the schools. So a lot of communications monitoring is going on that people don't even know. I was running long distance for my local high school. And when I went into their operation room where all the equipment was, I started checking all of the lines because I have codes I can type in that'll tell me where they go to. And I found dozens of lines that were going out to homes in the nearby community that were unknown to many of the people that were in the nearby homes. So what they had done is they had identified different houses that they were going to use if they needed an operation or command center locally around that school. So it's gotten very deep. It's very, very infiltrated in almost every segment of society. And now we know that in the street lights, they've got cameras and mics and everywhere. So if you live in a metropolitan area, you're being monitored 24/7.
And now with the drones going up soon, have they started flying them yet over there?
I haven't seen any. I'm hoping to, because I need some target practice.
Yeah, I have a feeling that they're, well, here where I live, we got a lot of good old boys here, and I have a feeling that if they do start flying drones over this area, that there's going to be quite a few of them that go down mysteriously.
It's going to be so much fun. I mean, it's like having your own target practice court right in your backyard.
Yep. Nothing like having a high-powered rifle.
I'll tell you, where I come from, which is northeastern Pennsylvania, and we like to call it Pennsyltucky.
Pennsyltucky.
Yeah.
You know, I grew up in a city, and we just call it the sticks. Like,
yeah, that's exactly right.
That's what we used to call that part of Pennsylvania. Or northern Jersey. That's just
exactly
sticks.
Right.
Yeah.
I got a kick out of that because I dated a woman in New York years ago, and she said they called it the sticks, and then I noticed other people were calling it the sticks. I'm like, well, that's unique. I wonder why they call it that, you know? And we're viewed as somewhat backward hicks from the sticks, I guess. Of course, they don't realize that in the area that I grew up in, Wayne County, the FBI used to call it the most heavily armed section of the country there was. And I, as a child, I didn't know anyone who didn't have less than a half a dozen guns and hundreds of thousands of rounds. And most of these guys all had caches buried in the woods, just in case.
Yeah.
So,
that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, it's an interesting place because we're all, as children, we were taught from really young. I mean, I think the legal age for hunting is like 12 or something, but that's not even close. I mean, as children, most of us were building our own bows at 5 or 6 years old, and by 7 or 8 years old, we had our first 22. My dad wouldn't allow me to, so I went to a friend of mine and I said, look, my dad won't let me have a gun. You know anybody that has one to sell? So he sold me a 22, and I cached that up in the woods. And whenever I wanted to go hunting, I would go grab my cache. And somebody told him about it, and he asked me about it. And I said, you can beat me all you want, but you will never, ever find that rifle. So it was one of those things where I grew up, everybody was very much constitutionally oriented, and they were interested in You leave me alone, and as long as I don't bother you or harm anyone, I should be able to do whatever I want, which is the way the country was founded, but it's certainly not the way we are now.
Right.
Yeah. So that I know this is a touchy subject, but that brings up, the whole thing that happened a few weeks back, and what's your take on that? Because
my take is 90% of all these shootings are all staged false flag operations. There's enough data behind a lot of them that you can pretty well figure that out in about 5 minutes worth of research. So don't expect that there's going to be any less of those, because their agenda now, and they're pushing very hard for this, is to wipe out gun ownership in the United States. Registration was the first thing they did, and that was many years ago. They told everybody you got to register your weapons. And the reason why they want registration is because they know where to find them when they come to take them away.
Right.
So in the cities, I am an absolute fan, and I mean an absolute fan of the folks who run the guns behind the lines to make sure anybody who wants one can get one. And the reason I say that is not because I want to see a lot of crime in the streets or things like that, but I'm a firm believer that if you are in a community where you are forced to own a gun, your crime rate drops to nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's proven over and over. You can look at Kennesaw, Georgia. When they enacted the law, their crime dropped by 90%. And they enacted a law that if you live here, you must own a gun. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. You can't live in the city limits there unless you own a gun. And boy, I'll tell you what, it was like every bad element left the area immediately.
Yep.
So
yeah,
go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say that reminds me of Switzerland. When you turn 18, it's 18, right, Tom? They give you a
yeah,
gun?
I think so.
Yeah, but I remember I was trying to get a gun because at the time I was working at a bedding store, and I was working in the South Bronx, and I would always carry money home with me. And I was telling my regional managers, I said, "This is ridiculous. I'm working in with money, and they know I'm working with money, and I got a heroin spot across the street from me, and I could see guys injecting themselves."
Yep.
But of course, I couldn't get one.
Yeah, that's when I used to go into New York City, guns were illegal. And what I would simply do is I would just put it in my ankle holster. And I didn't carry a little 22. I had a 45 caliber ACP loaded with mag defender rounds. And so if somebody found out that I had one on me, there would have been a lot of problems because I certainly would not have given it up. I have an absolute zero tolerance for any police organization that says that you must have a permit to own a gun, because the Second Amendment is unbelievably clear.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter what the courts say. The bottom line is that's the way it is. Now, here's something that's interesting in gun control. There is a YouTube TV show called Breaking the Set, and the woman's name is Abby Martin. Now, it's sponsored by RT, which is Russian television, and they're pointing out a lot of the problems with our government and things like that are going on. However, which I'm very happy about, don't get me wrong. But what they don't do is they do not point out the foibles over in Russia. They only point out ours, and they're incredibly anti-gun.
Right.
And I got to tell you, as soon as I saw them start doing shows like that, it was pretty clear to me that they were part and parcel of someone trying to help get the world de-weaponized in the general population. See, I'm of the opinion that we don't need the amount of police force activity that we have, which is all militarized, as you know. And we don't need the size of the militaries we have, unless, of course, you want to conquer other countries and steal their stuff, which is what we do. We do it well, and I don't like it. People say, well, the terrorists were the ones that started it in 9/11. And I said, oh, you mean the U.S. government? Because I was there at the time that it happened in front of my television set. And the girl I was dating called me up and said, go turn on the TV and turn on this channel. I turned it on, there it was. And the first words out of my mouth were, I said, Mary Beth, we did that. And she goes, what do you mean? I said, our government did that. And she couldn't understand it. And sure enough, right afterwards, out came the Patriot Act. Well, you're seeing the same thing now with gun control. You're seeing staged shootings, and these people don't care who dies. Children, women, pregnant people, it doesn't matter to them. They want massive outrage against guns so they can take them away from the general population, because we are the last country out there that literally has the only chance of going up against the government and winning. We're the only one.
You know the
knows it.
You know the funny thing is that when that happened, the next weekend there was like these in not Prospect Park, Fort Greene Park in Brooklyn. There was always on the weekends during the summer and into late September there was always these parties where they would play like classic disco and old club music. And I used to go to them, and I knew this guy for years from the club scene. And he was a Green Beret, much older gentleman. He's about 15 years older than me. And the first thing out of his mouth, he pulled me into the middle of the crowd because people are dancing in loud music so they can't hear. And he said, that was us. And I go, what the fuck are you talking about? And he goes, that was us. And I knew because I call my old partner in the military, and he said, were there any radio usage? And he said, no. He says, that was us. And I still didn't get it. At that time, I wasn't really into the whole thing. And then later, more and more, I started investigating. I'm like, oh, crap. He was right.
All the alert aircraft were told to stand down.
Yep.
Beforehand. By the way, when it comes to 9/11, I was living up in near Callicoon, New York a while ago, and I went to a restaurant up there. And this was right after it happened. And I'm sitting there waiting for my order to come because I was doing a takeout. And there was a guy sitting there, and we were just chatting a little bit. And I said, what are you doing? He goes, well, I was in construction down in New York. And I said, wow, yeah, that was not a bad scene down there. He goes, yeah, well, it was even worse because when I was working in the bottom of the Twin Towers, I saw where they had holes drilled through all of the big beam structures, and they were putting explosives in. And he said they had little LED lasers between the spots that were to be drilled and to be implanted. And he said some guy came up behind me with a Masonic ring on and said, I see you see our light display. And he goes, what the hell is going on? And the guy said, they have to come down. And he left and evidently never said a word up until after it happened because, he probably didn't really get it.
Right.
He probably didn't really understand what was going to happen because he maybe never had seen plastic explosives or never had made any. So he wouldn't realize how small of a charge and all those different holes it takes just to fracture those things. And, when you look at Judy Wood's information, it's entirely possible that were particle beam weapons involved as well.
Right.
So we all know now today that this is what happened. But you've got Joe Sixpack and a bunch of other people that are in academia that are saying, we would never do something like that and blah, blah, blah. But these are the few, the proud and the ignorant in our country who are basically happy to make their bucks, happy to come home, do what they do, and go back to work as long as nobody messes with them. And they are not people who really have a lot of intestinal fortitude.
You know what it reminds me of? It kind of reminds me of the mom who denies that her child is a little badass.
Exactly.
He's doing all these bad things. No, not my child. Not my country. They would never do that.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, it just the the whole population of the in the world, it just absolutely, I don't know, it's fascinating to see how easily manipulated the social consciousness is.
It's
Yeah.
unbelievably easy. When I was in the Navy, I ran the television station and the radio station. I was a chief technician there for a while. And I remember we were watching television one evening in our coop where all the guys were, and they had an expose. Now we're out in the middle of the ocean, and we get the news days later. And I'm looking at CBS or one of them, and they're talking about subliminal programming. And I was like, that's pretty sick and disgusting. But now, if you remember, my dad had taught me a lot of fun things when I was younger, and my dad had a really powerful mind. So when I was young, I basically learned how to put up blocks so that he couldn't affect me. And I was extraordinarily good at this. To this day, I don't have any trouble with having anybody access my mind unless I ask them to or I want them to. And I've had some of the best psychics on the planet and some of the best remote viewers try, and they have not succeeded. But I went into this, I said to myself, you know what, this is sick, this subliminal programming stuff. I wonder if we're doing that to the crew. Now, I thought, well, this is interesting. And the guys heard me say that. So I went down to the control center for the television station, and I whipped out my oscilloscope, and I plugged it into the signal, and I start breaking the signal apart and spreading it out in the time domain, looking for signals that shouldn't be there. And all of a sudden, up behind me comes this big goon. Now, this is my station. And some goon I don't even know comes up behind me and says, what do you think you're doing? And I told him exactly what I was doing. I had a lot of balls in those days. I don't, I'll tell you exactly what I'm doing. If I'm coming to your home to rob you, I'm going to call up, knock on the door, and I'm going to say, I'm here to rob you. So basically, I said, and I just turned around and I went back to what I was doing. And I split that signal apart 8 ways to Sunday, and I could not find anything in it. But the fact that he was behind me told me that there was something there. And I finally figured it out a couple of days later. It was in the blanking signal. When your TV makes a picture, in the old days when they used a CRT instead of LCDs, there was an electron beam that goes across your screen at a little bit of an angle, and then it paints the picture in all the little pixels. Then they blank that signal out, so it's totally dark, and they bring the beam all the way back. That's the retrace. And then they turn the beam back on, and they do it again and again. So every other line is a picture painted. Well, your mind and your eyes look at the screen, and they don't see the blank lines. Your brain only sees that picture that was painted. So what they were doing was hiding the information of the subliminal programming in between on the blanking line signal. And when you spread it out, it's almost impossible to find it. It was sheer genius, but that's what they were doing. Now today, they use the strobing rates on the television screens of the light. That's why you see the pictures change so fast in a lot of commercials. They're trying to cut down the attention span, and they're also putting in programming. So when you talk about my little Johnny won't do this, well, it's not hard to program, Mom, that my country wouldn't do this.
How can you tell if you've been programmed?
You ever notice somebody is watching a television program and you can talk right to them and they won't even know you're there?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's not normal. I mean, everybody has good focus when they learn how to do it. However, when it happens a lot with the television, it ain't just good focus.
Right.
Yeah. So I want to bring up this other thing because I hear in the news media, everybody's, even the news media here, everybody's talking about the gun, the gun, the gun. but no one's talking about China. What happened in China a couple of days later, where some guy goes into a school and stabs a bunch of children, and it happened here in Japan like 5-6 years ago.
It doesn't matter if somebody wants to kill someone. You can take all the guns away, and that person will be just as dead the next day if they want them dead. You will find a pipe, a club, a rock, a knife, a stake, a spear,
A toothbrush.
Yeah, exactly. A bottle of acid, whatever. If you want to kill somebody, you're going to kill them. So it's not the weapon; it's simply the person. But in the case of these staged operations and these staged murders, it's the same as 9/11. It's designed to pass legislation.
Right.
Yeah. So, Tom.
Yeah, let's get back into our main form and focus of the show here. We can get back to some of this other stuff here later on, I think. But back into, what took you towards the radionics end of things?
Okay, this was interesting because after I spent all that time doing infiltration of some of these companies and things like that, back around 2000, I was in telecommunications. I was doing quite well. I was knocking down $250,000 a year on a company I had started myself. So I was doing really good. And then all of a sudden, I became ill. And what I finally was able to attribute it to, and I'm not positive of this, but when I was in the Navy on the aircraft carrier, there was an accident. We had a phalanx weapon system, which is basically a Gatling gun that shoots depleted uranium rounds. And they were shooting down a drone in an exercise, an unmanned drone. And the servo that stops that Gatling gun from going and spinning all the way around full circle, it malfunctioned and it shot up the entire side of the ship on the O3 level, right where I was working in the intelligence center. And those particles went in there, and I got dosed pretty heavily with depleted uranium. Then years later, when I had gotten out, I worked in process control computing for a few years for MeasureX Corporation. And they had gamma detectors, and one of those gamma detectors froze up open, and I got irradiated with gamma. And so I think what happened was the radiation damage over years basically shredded a lot of tissue and screwed up a lot of things in my body. And I became very ill.
Can I stop you for a second?
Yeah.
Isn't, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't in the Geneva Convention, isn't that illegal?
It may be now, but back in those days, depleted uranium was used in a lot of different weapons. And I don't know if they knew just how damaging it was to the human body, but they clearly know now, and they're still using it. So whether it's against the Geneva Convention or not, none of these things matter anymore, because this is the wild, wild west all over again. It's not whether or not you'll obey the Geneva Convention or the UN or whatever bogus organization is out there. If you have the guns and the might, you're going to go out there and do whatever you want, and no one's going to hold you accountable. That's what's going on today. And so, I became very ill, and it got to the point where I had about 2 weeks left to live, and I couldn't even lift a jug of milk with 2 hands. And it was so bad, and I finally ran across this naturopathic doctor in a journal. I remembered his name, and I contacted him, and he used the Heal Detox Kit, which is what I use today as a practitioner, and some a lot of detox and nutrition and juicing, and we did chelation therapy. And in about 8 months, I was able to get out of bed finally. And even though I had lost my voice for over a month, and it took me 1.5 years to learn to walk properly again, I was able to come back quite a bit. And that's what got me into becoming a practitioner myself. And I learned all of these different techniques, and I became board certified in nutrition. And now I'm working on my homotoxicological boards, and it's what I practice. So what happened is I started doing that, and we got myself back to the point where I was really in good shape again. And that's what I continue to work on, because I want to make sure other people know that they don't have to die from cancer and other diseases. A lot of this stuff can be reversed. Not all, but a lot. And so I started working in low-frequency sound applications to stimulate certain parts of the body and the brain. I played with binaural beats for a while, which they don't work long-term, despite what the Monroe Institute will tell you. And I worked on several other things, like the Shiva and Shakti neural stimulation systems, which I use today. And then someone had got me into radionics. I had a lot of my clients kept calling me and saying, what do you know about radionics? What do you know about radionics? And the only thing I knew at the time is most of that came out of Russia. So I said, you know what? This keeps popping up. I better do something about it. And it was a lot like the implant that they found in me that the History Channel took out on television. You probably saw the episode. Evidently, military intelligence had stuck an implant in my leg to track me, and I knew nothing about it. But at any rate,
was that Dr. Lear?
Yeah. You might have seen the episode. Yeah. They never talked about the military intelligence connection. They just, on the cutting room floor, they made it look like I thought I was abducted by aliens, which I didn't. And they never told the truth about the military intelligence connection, which is who probably put that in there. So the radionics I got into because I decided just like that, it kept coming up to the front of my consciousness all the time. And I said, you know what, I better look into this. And I started looking into it. And the more I got into it, I went, oh my God, why wasn't I doing this 10 years ago, 20 years ago? Because this is one of the best kept secrets on the planet. And it's a type of energy that we all have access to that they absolutely do not want you to realize. And that's why I play with it now, because it's the most powerful thing we can use against the globalists.
So there was a couple things you said there. I wasn't sure what it was. Was that what was it? Chelix?
Chelation.
Chelation. What's chelation exactly?
All right, chelation is when you use certain kinds of supplements and items that will bind to toxins and drag them out of your body. Now, I use something called zeolite, which is the same thing the U.S. Navy buys for their nuclear submarine guys. And what it does is I get it in a liquid form, and it's kind of gritty and sandy. Put it under your tongue, and you leave it there for a couple of minutes, and some of it goes through the buccal tissue into your bloodstream, and then you swallow the rest. What it does is it encapsulates radiation particles and drags that stuff out of your body. And the problem with getting dosed with radiation is not that initial dose. It's the breakdown of those particles in your body, because as they leave, they shred tissue and they destroy all kinds of stuff. So if you can get that stuff drug out, you can chelate it right out of the body, as well as doing mercury and cadmium and all kinds of other nasty stuff. So using certain kinds of supplements, you can pull all those heavy metals out of your body. I use very specific formulations for different patients, because a lot of people today are getting dosed heavily with mercury because they don't realize that their teeth are loaded with mercury fillings. And people are starting to really wise up to that. But many dentists won't tell you the truth about it. They'll say, oh, it's harmless, it's not a problem. And they're full of crap, and we all know that.
Well, they just don't. Most of them don't know. They're going by what they were told.
There's a fair amount of them that don't know. I agree. But there's so much in the press about it now and so much in the literature that the ones who don't know must have their head in the sand.
Yeah.
The other...
Or somewhere else I could think of.
Yes, precisely. In the military, we called it anal cranial insertion.
Right.
So,
there's one other thing I should tell you about, Ramon, that in regards to chelation. Right now, in the United States and around the world, we have a really bad thing going on. People are buying new cars, and they're getting sick. And it turns out it's antimony poisoning. They're using antimony in the upholstery, and this stuff outgasses. So while you're on your drive to work, you're getting a heavy dose of that all the time. One of my clients, basically, she kept getting all kinds of issues, and it turned out it was her brand new Subaru that was loaded with antimony in the upholstery. And it's not just Subaru, it's many cars.
Antimony, what is antimony?
It's just another, I don't know if it's an element or not. I'd have to go look at my charts, but it's used in a lot of upholstery and different fabrics, and I can't recall what they use it for, but it helps make these things either more pliable or last longer. I would have to go look it up because I didn't spend a lot of time on it. I put them through a heel kit and started getting this stuff out of them. But you're going to find that a lot of this stuff that they're using, they're doing some of it to help make the products better, but they don't really care whether it makes you sick or not as long as you buy it. And we all know that there's right now a global move to cut the population down. And so anything that makes them a buck and cuts the population at the same time is good for them. And that's the way they look at it. What were you going to say before, Ramon? I apologize.
Oh, no. We're at the end of the hour, and I can't believe it.
Wow, that went by fast.
Yeah. You know, as Jef is he's speeding up time. So I want to give you a chance to tell the listeners where they can find you before we go into the member section, where they can find you, your YouTube, or do you have any books out? Or
I don't, and I get most of the information out on these radio shows. My website is www.jeftech.net, and it's spelled JEFTECH.net. There's only one F in Jeff. If somebody needs to email me, it's JEF@jeftech.net. And again, only one F in Jeff. And
I have all the links there.
Yeah, I do so much work with the Shiva neural stimulation systems for astral projection and out-of-body experiences. And I work with Todd Murphy on this, who he works with Laurentian University. It's all Dr. Persinger's original work that Todd took and developed into a commercial product. So I do a lot of those things, and so I help a lot of people get better dream states and be able to do some of the things that we do.
We'll definitely get into that quite heavily here in the next segment.
So this is your chance. If you guys aren't a member yet, you could become a member. You see that this is what, our 123rd show, Tom?
Yeah, I think so.
24th? 5th? I don't know. It's 100 and something. So, you know, we're giving you shows consistently, and we don't charge a lot. So hit that member and help support us so we can get this information out there. Tom?
Let's see. Who's that bumper music we're listening to? Inner Soul?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's an old friend of mine's, actually, from the neighborhood where I grew up. That's Inner Soul, and it's called The Right Time. I think you guys will really enjoy it.
And it'll take us out into this next segment. So I want to thank everybody for listening, and we will see you on the other side. Condemnation.
Oh, yeah. And if you're listening to us on YouTube, you can just go over to www.thehundredthmonkeyradio.com, and you can become a member there and check out the other archives we have. Go ahead, Tom, sorry.
Condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance.
The love you deny is the pain you carry.
And we love you guys. We'll see you in the second segment.
shout, damn, I got freedom. Unless it's being taught, black man, I know you need one. It's the right time to make you free your mind. Wake up, if you missed it, then press rewind. It's the right time to make you free your mind. Wake up, if you missed it, then press rewind. It's the right time to make you free your mind. Wake up, if you missed it, then press rewind. It's the right time to make you free your mind. Wake up. Unheim I am, you want the plan, then that's the native. Shouldn't tell an artist not to be creative. You see, the motive is to control more than this did. Hit, listen up, listen the soul, and I'll bring much more than your average MC. Please give me a break, man. Let me be me so I can be free to do as I please. See what I see, be who I be. And yo, act like me. I got the rhyme and my timing's from the center. Lyrics on the brain even when I start to enter. The beats I'm bending, the vibes I'm sending, it's pleasure, never better. Even though shit is a mess, I never stress, in touch with insight, therefore I'm blessed with the armor. Tell your mama, but kill the drama. It's the right time to make you free your mind. Wake up, if you missed it, then press rewind. It's the right time to make you free your mind. Wake up, if you missed it, then press rewind. It's the right time to make you free your mind. Wake up, if you missed it, then press rewind. It's the right time to make you free your mind. Wake up. Yo, the master rhymer indiscreet. I walk the street with the knowledge, learning about things that you can't get in college, like science from the pavement, beats from the basement. My mouth full of lyrics, then the label makes the placement. Then my face went across the screen. This girl saw me getting raw to the beats with the gasoline. My self-esteem went through the roof. Stepped into the club, yo, I got juice, got loose on the MI. Now she's in my face, dragging me all around the place. Damn, it's a disgrace that I can't enjoy my craft, spew my math, cause I'm too busy running away from this girl with the dumb laugh. My path straight, so I lose the habit, and yo, I bounce like the rabbit. Yo, she's got the habit, cause she's chasing me. I'm out the door, kid, it's in the soul, and I'm free. The right time to make you free your mind. Wake up.